Happy Sabbath, everybody. Was that everybody? I think there were two people who didn't say Happy Sabbath. Happy Sabbath, everybody. Cecilia Rock is one of my favorite persons. I think her husband knows that I'm in love with his wife. She confessed from the platform this morning that she likes conversationalists, and some of the best times I have with conversation is with her, actually. I do call periodically. She checks upon our family, especially with Susanna, and she always asks about the children, and we engage in conversation on a deep level. I have written things and sent them to her and asked her to proofread them, to vet them for me and to recommend changes and so on. And Cecilia, I'm going to need that talent and gift even more so now, because as the new leader of the church in Barbados, I plan to engage our internal and external publics. And if that becomes a reality, I'm going to need speech writers to make sure that I say the right thing. And you understand what I'm saying, Kay? Yeah, don't let it be no noise, Right. I'm very serious about that. And I want to say good morning to the church entirely and all those online as well watching us today. And if you're not sick or unable otherwise to get out to church, I want to invite you to come back to the face-to-face communion because that is going to be our emphasis going forward. As a new administration, we are very clear that as long as the space allows it, and as long as you're healthy and you're able to attend in person, we would prefer that be the case. I know you're comfortable home because the Zoom allows people to lay in their beds and be in their kitchen and not to put on clothes and still be able to participate in the worship. But I somehow think that the Apostle Paul was right when he said, do not forsake the assembly of yourselves together. Did he mention together? And that word seems to suggest to me that there must be a physical gathering of the people, a collective worship and fellowship. And even though you're able to view us and watch us and so on from a distance, there's something about God's people when they get together that is not quite the same as a YouTube or a Zoom or one of those platforms. I like the feeling I get when I get together with God's wonderful people. Can I speak it like I believe it this morning? And so our administration is taking a policy that we are going to promote deliberately and actively and get our pastors to pursue that policy of getting our members back to church. After all, we ride the transport board buses and go to work. And we go to the supermarket and we go to school. Hey, let's come to church. Is that all right? Did I say it correctly? Was I too harsh? Okay, good. God bless you. Brother Butcher, Sister Butcher, good morning. Linda, you good? I see in everybody. Kay works with us at the office, and we are thankful for the work that she does there. You probably know her as Karen, or you say Karen. Which one is it? Chrissy, that's what it's called you here? I just call she Karen. Okay. She works with us at the office. She's been involved in our insurance plan and so on and various other things. And her supervisor this week told me that she's a good worker and that she's a quality person and that her work is appreciated at the office. So thank you very much for your service at the office and at church as well. Tyrone, say amen. I believe she works well at home too, right? Huh? I'm sorry, I kind of walk up and down, so the camera is going to have a lot of trouble this morning. Now, I've been asked to, oh, by the way, some people asked for Susanna. She's in St. Lucia. She's a teacher, primary school teacher. And the largest amount of time in terms of holiday that she has is summer. Sometimes at Easter, that is not really any holiday for a teacher. She wants to be with her mother, who is now 92 years old. And every time Susanna goes and comes back, she says to me, Tony, I don't know if this is going to be the last time. My own mother is 91 years old. And we know full well that as you grow older, man, listen, even when you're young, anything can happen any day. So Susanna goes during the summer to spend time with her mother. And that's all right with me because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for us The Sabbath is for Jesus. So she'll come back and she'll spend time with me. That'll be all right. She's arriving this Thursday. And if you don't see me at the office, let the people know that I'll be around on Friday. Yeah? Take Friday off too? All right, boss. So she's coming home on Thursday, I think somewhere in the middle of the afternoon or so. So you will see me in the morning and then I'll disappear at some point in time. The children are now 25 years old and 22 years old, respectively. And Sonny runs his own small business doing photography, videography, and computer graphics. He's making some money with that. And I've been telling him, with all that money that you're making, I think it is time to leave my house. I told him already, if you get to 25 and you're living in here, I want rent. Now, I don't want the rent, but I want him to know the place is not his. And that the Bible says you must leave, cleave, and conceive in that order. So I keep telling the children, don't conceive before you leave. You got to cleave. You got to leave, cleave, and then conceive. Is that all right? And the point-sized girl that is about this high, year high, she's 22 years old and has been at it long enough to complete a LLB degree. She finished. She doesn't have the certificate, but she's done. And she will graduate sometime in October, and she's on her way to law school in September. I'm taking her down to Trinidad on the 13th and spending a week with her to settle her so she can feel comfortable with the transition, and then I'll come back to work. So that's our family. And I'm looking forward to grandbabies. People that I can spoil, because we didn't spoil the bigger ones, so it's now time to spoil some grandbabies. I don't know if they're going to do that for us, but I told them that they must leave, cleave, and leave. Anytime now would be a good time, because the place belongs to your mother and I, and you must find your own place. I tell my children, aren't you all glad that I don't live with my mother? Praise the Lord. But we're going to do some talking today, so let's put up the PowerPoint and let's see how far we can get with that. I don't think I left out anything. Fairly soon, we are taking the time at the office to do some administrative things, get our feet wet, understand what's going on, look at the problems, look at what is existing. And a time is going to come, maybe within another 2 weeks or so, when I will come to the constituency and say something. We'll get the elders together, the pastors together, and we begin to talk. You cannot work before you understand what is going on around you, right? And I know there's a lot of stuff that has gone on that people have questions about. And when I do come to you, you're going to have those questions. So I got to take the time to find the answers before I come to you. Does that make sense? Following on from where Cecilia left off this morning, I'm not really preaching. This presentation is going to be more about law than it will be about the Bible or anything else. But I'm going to try to mix and match and merge. So I want to spend time today talking in particular about child protection and safety. And I've taglined it, a legal and policy consideration. So I'm going to talk about the law, and I'm also going to talk about the church policy as it relates to the protection of children. Women are going to come in there as well, but it's largely going to be about children. I hope you can see the PowerPoint. Let's keep me honest, keep going forward, and we'll see. So this is Enditnow. And Enditnow for women's ministries also spills over to children's ministries. And it is the concept that domestic violence and abuse has been going on now for a long time. And the church is taking a position that we are calling on the society and our membership to end violence and abuse, and domestic abuse in particular, now. That's the thematic concept that we are celebrating today. Keep going forward for me, please. Now, we want to look again at abuse or domestic violence. And broadly speaking, domestic violence becomes that violence which happens in the house or is related to people who live in the house with you or who used to live in the house with you. So more often than not, when we speak of domestic violence, we are talking about spouses, husbands and wives, or boyfriends and girlfriends, man and woman who live together in a special relationship who are abusive to one another. And that would include the abuse that comes from the parent to the child, and from the child to the parent, and from the stepfather to the ones that he has not really fathered. All of that is considered domestic abuse. Now, hold on a minute. The law in the Caribbean is evolving, and it's changing to become more adaptable to the reality that everybody is not married. Everybody is not married. Church members, did you hear what I say? But you have people who live together in relationships as though they were married. And the rights and benefits and privileges of law apply equally to those people who are living shacked up as to those people who are legitimately married. And in fact, if you cohabit in Barbados for about 5 years without breaks and so on, you then are entitled to all the benefits that come along as though you were really a married person. Anybody heard what I'm saying? And I don't know who I'm talking to this morning, so this is some free advice. You don't have to pay for it. If you came on Monday, you would have to pay. But today is Sabbath, and since I'm an Adventist, I don't charge no money on Sabbaths. So if you live with a man for 5 consecutive years and you're not married to the man and vice versa, the rights that appertain to marriage in Barbados also apply to you. And nobody has the right to beat you or to spit in your face or to cut up your clothes or to hide your credit card or to stop you from getting in the vehicle that you contribute to. Are you hearing what I'm saying? Nobody has that right, whether you're married or not. And the law evolving in the Caribbean, Tyrone, speaks to special relationships. So the evolving law now says you don't even have to live together. As long as you are in a romantic, special relationship as boyfriend and girlfriend, these trappings of the Domestic Law Act also apply to you. So ordinarily speaking, it is an offense, an act of offense against the person if you beat upon anybody, but more particularly so if you are in a special relationship. So if you're boyfriend and girlfriend, if you're dating, or if you are, what's the word now when you got on the ring but you're not yet married? Engaged. The Domestic Violence Act applies to you also. That is the way in which judges and courts have been interpreting this law throughout the Caribbean region. So not just marriage, any special romantic relationship. Let's move forward quickly. So we're looking at the scope of domestic violence. It is as far-reaching, more far-reaching, than the black eye or the raised fist. Now, we may think it's domestic violence if somebody cuff you. But there are a lot of things that happen within households that are not violence in the physical sense, but are violence nonetheless. And I believe that the pendulum on the clock swings as far on the tick as it does on the talk. Anybody heard me that time? So women does abuse men, and men does abuse women too. You all heard that? There's a lot of man abuse going on in this country that nobody talks about because the men are ashamed and embarrassed to speak about it in public places. They go to the police station and they say the woman beat me, and the police laugh at them. I've heard clients say to me, the police tell me to give she 2 slaps. Now, how the police can tell give the woman 2 slaps? Because if you slap she and she called them, the same people that tell you give the woman 2 slaps, then come and put you in handcuffs. Are you hearing what I'm saying to you? Can I talk Bajan or must I speak standard English all the time? All right, let me get a little Bajan in between because I suspect that woman doesn't understand that better. That does be more better than when you try to speak the Queen's English and be done with the Queen and all that. So this is who we are. Now get this. There's a lot of psychological abuse going on in homes. And women's tongues are very sharp and deadly. Man, a woman can tell you some things that will make you curl up like a little boy and a little Dolphus. You know what I'm talking about? Say no. Please say no that you do not know what I'm speaking about. You hear from other people. All right, good. Do the women in here know what I'm talking about? Now, the Bible says that the word of God is sharper than any two-edged sword. But I think it missed out the woman's tongue. The woman's tongue. You may not hit men, but the things you say that play on their psyche, the silent treatment, what the Bible calls defrauding, which means the withholding of sexual experiences, are abusive in relationships. Did I say that correctly? Man, y'all don't understand what I'm saying? I am saying that women also abuse men in different ways, but it is abuse nonetheless. Men, I thought y'all be balling murder in here. I ain't got no support here at the office. It's only me and you that know about these things. Yeah, I know about them. Sometimes Susanna says some things, Drina, that psychologically they got me good. You understand? And if I up my hand and hit her, everybody will be talking about that, but when I'm not talking about the things that she does tell me. Anybody understand what I just said? I'm standing up for the men, and I'm making the point that the videos may be going around with men cuffing women, but there are a lot of men getting cuffed too. A lot of frying pans and saucepans, and all that stuff, and the men ain't unpicking their teeth. You hearing me? All right, good. So that is out of the way. Let's get out of the way fast. Go forward, please. So in Barbados, we have this piece of law, this legislation called the Domestic Violence Act. And it defines domestic violence. Harassment or abuse is defined in that act as including these things. Intimidation of a person. So short of hitting a person, the act says if you intimidate them. And how do you intimidate people, generally speaking? By threats, threatening them. That is domestic violence. So you don't have to hit in Barbados. If you use words that are abusive, threatening people, and telling them that you would hit them or that you would knock them back into eternity, or if you say to your children, I brought you in and I can take you out, that's language that is abusive, whether or not you mean it. And both men and women do these things, all right? So let's move on. So intimidation of the person by persistent verbal abuse, threats of physical violence, the malicious damage of the property of the person or by any other means. And let me explain that. There are some men who might not hit you, but they take a scissors and cut up all your clothes. Yeah? You can't go to church. I don't want you down in that Pilgrim Road church no more. All right? These are Adventist people. They take up your stuff. They're the only ones who earn money in the house. So when you do not do as they want, they withhold money. They give you only so much. You know what I'm saying? To buy groceries. I know some men, it's not because they are loving. They go to the supermarket and buy all the groceries because they don't want the woman to have any control of money. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Those things are wrong, especially for Christian people. And if y'all in here doing that, I can tell you like the Jamaican people and them, top it. If there are men relating to women like that, top it. It's not proper. It's unchristian and it's illegal. All right, good. Next one, please. It adds to that. Harassment or abuse, Tyrone, is this: the persistent following of a person from one place to another. So there are men who want to see what the women doing, the women who want to see what the men doing. And when they leave for work, you don't believe they're going to work. So you get somebody to pick you up and drop you off, and you're peeping, and you're following them around to see who they're talking to and what they're doing. That's harassment, and it's illegal. C, the hiding of any clothes or other property owned by or used by a person or depriving of a person of the use thereof, the hindering of a person in the use of those things. Next one, quickly. The watching or besetting of the house or other place where a person resides, works, or carries on business, or happens to be, or the approach to the house or other place, all of that under the act is domestic violence. All right, so you don't live there anymore, but your car park outside your house every night, looking to see who the guest for that night is. Well, if you're not in the story no more, go find some other relationship. Stop stalking. That is illegal. All right? That is illegal. So, as the magistrate said in that recent case, some of us men have to learn to get over the fact that the woman no longer wants us. And some women need to get over that fact too. Now, if my wife left me, I can cry. I tell you straight. I can cry bad. I can wish that she didn't do that. But I think that I have so much pride now, Dolphus. I'm begging she to stay, I'm begging she to come back neither. I can cry and I can go to the psychologist, and I can come by Dolphus and say, Dolphus, and all of that, and I'm going to work towards getting over it. Anybody heard what I said? Because you can't live in that place all the time where you are a danger to others and a danger to yourself, because psychologically it's not healthy. You need to be able to eat and drink and move on with your life, all right? That's what we have to say. And you can tell by now that it's not only the pastor talking, it's the lawyer talking as well. And you're going to have to deal with that now that I'm your leader, because I wear both hats, and I'm not denying any aspect of my life. All right? So get it. I think it can be helpful to the church for people to understand both dynamics. So where am I now? Did I go through this already? Some acts of domestic violence or abuse are criminal, which means when you do a criminal thing, you are going to get locked up. I want to repeat that. Some acts of abuse are criminal. If you physically hit a person, it's an assault. It could be a battery. That's what the law calls it. But if you raise your hand and never hit them, it could still be an assault. You follow what I'm saying? Because it's an action that causes the person to fear for their safety or for their life. So if you, like a certain man I knew when I was a little boy in the village where I grew up, he wouldn't never hit his wife, he never touched her, but he would come out on the step and sit down with the wampa. Anybody know what wampa is? Trinidad has a good old Bajan word, right? A cutlass, a bill, and he would get the rasp and the sandpaper or on the step itself, and he's sharpening it, and he's watching her soul up. Intimidation. Randolph, how are you doing, man? As a marshal, you might have come across these things. The man is not, you're not saying anything, you're not hitting anybody, but he's sharpening the knives, sharpening the wampa, and looking at your soul up. Or the smoke coming out the ears and that kind of thing. Now, what impression you're getting from that? That behavior is illegal because it's a threatening behavior, right? All right, good. Let's move forward. No. Sorry. So if they attract either fines, or imprisonment, hitting, choking, kicking, assaulting with a weapon, showing the weapon, scratching, biting, rape. You know it's possible for a man to rape his own wife. Does anybody know that? Children don't listen too much, but I guess y'all can listen. Y'all big enough to listen. It is possible for a man to rape his own wife. And the reason is this. Rape is a crime that depends on consent. And if a person does not consent to sexual activity, it's a violation of their personhood. So even in the context of a marriage, there needs to be a level of consent. Anybody heard that? I was once in a court somewhere. I don't know if y'all can handle this. Maybe I shouldn't tell one of this. Roger, tell them. I was in a court some time ago, right? And, during the lovemaking experience, people say things. And it happened that the woman said on the stand that she told the man, no, don't, stop. And when the man came on the platform, on his stand, he said the woman told him, don't stop. He put the two words together. She said, don't stop. Man, tell the court, she tell me don't stop. And I'm saying this deliberately. Everything I say, there's a reason for it. The male of the species with whom I am acquainted, very closely acquainted with the male of the species, believe that resistance from the female could really be a turn on. Men, if a woman says no, do not simply interpret it as being hard to get. Did the men in the congregation hear me? And you all young boys that go with the young girls and them. No is no. No does not mean try harder. Did anybody hear what I just said? Because you're going to be charged with rape. No must always be interpreted as no. Are you smiling behind that mask? You look like you're smiling. I can see your chest and your shoulders shaking. But no is no. All right? I'm moving on quickly. I hope I'm not embarrassing anybody, but I came to tell you the truth today. Is that all right? Good. So if a person is abusing you, you can get protection orders from the court under the Domestic Violence, the DVA Protection Orders Act. Come put in those down for me. You should have some. Good, there way. So by Section 4, this is what the law in Barbados says. If you apply to the court for protection order, that application can be made by the spouse or former spouse, and remember, boyfriend or girlfriend, whether living together or not. Okay? Spouse or former spouse of the person against whom the order is to be made. So you want to get an order against your wife because you tired of the friend on top of your head. You can apply to the court where the offense was committed or the harassment conducted against that spouse or a child in the household. So there's some men who don't beat their wives, but they beat up on the children beyond the ordinary discipline that a parent should do. The mother can get an order against that man. Are you hearing what I'm saying? Now, the next limb of the statute, go forward for me, please, goes on to say, because there was a time in Barbados where a woman would be the only person who can go to the court to protect herself. And many women would say, I love the man. I don't want him to get in any trouble. He's the only breadwinner. If I take him to the court and he get locked up or something like that, how I get him through in life? So the women did not take the men to the court because it was a catch-22 kind of situation, right? The law has moved away from that. And the law is saying, if the woman does not have the strength of character and personality because she's frightened or any of those other factors I just mentioned, she can't do it herself because she doesn't have the fortitude and the strength. We want to open up that law to allow other people who have her interests at heart to do it. So the law now says any member of the household, and get this, the WhatsApp message that went around recently with the man cuffing up the woman, you all saw that? That was hard to watch, isn't it? Man, I can watch the whole thing. From the time I see part I've done, I couldn't stomach it because it looked real wrong and bad to me. All right, he's beating up on the woman, but get this, you know it's one of the children that blow the whistle, and the law allows that. So the abused woman who is now trapped in the abuse and who can't report it herself, the children can do it, or anybody else that lives in the house. So if you got an aunt there or uncle there or your father or mother live, they can do it on your behalf. The commissioner of police can do it. Like if you call the police to the house and the police see all these bruises and all that kind of thing and ask you how you get them, and you say you fall down the stairs, but your house ain't got no stairs. When I understand what I say, the police can bring that action on your behalf. You follow what I'm saying? This is where the law is now. Go forward again, please. The application can also be made by a person other than a person who is a member of the household as an agent for that person. So you got a friend at work, and you tell the friend at work all what's going on, and the friends realize you can't defend yourself. The friend can say, enough is enough. I can tell this to the police. I'm going to tell this to the court. So the law has been evolving and opening up to allow other people to protect the vulnerable who cannot stand up for themselves. Next. A child care officer or welfare officer can do it as well. Go forward quickly, please. Now, the form of the protection orders. A protection order may include provisions to restrain or prevent the person who you are taking to the court, the abuser, from being on the premises. Now, men, you're not going to like this because men are usually the ones who perpetrate the violence more than women. But I know some of y'all get him blows too. Right? I know some men get him blows. But the point is this. Whoever sharing the blows or whoever the abuser is can be restrained by the order from being on the premises. Now, men don't like that. They can prevent you from being on the premises on which the complainant for the protection order or the children in respect of whom the order was made resides. So in other words, you live in a house with a woman and children, you're married, you're not married, you're beating up on them, the woman goes to the court. The court can say, stay away from that house, even though you bill them. even though you're the only person who spend money on it. Every nail and shingle was purchased by you, and you're a carpenter, and you actually nailing the nails and went up top the house and took the risk of falling down and all of that. The law does not care. If you're abusing a woman and her children or your children, the law can tell you, look, please leave this house. And let me tell you why that is so. It is so because women and children are particularly vulnerable. Lots of women do not work. Children certainly do not. And it cannot be that the woman who does not work and the children who do not work and they're only 5 and 6 and 7 years old and can't fend for themselves, you cannot ask them to leave because they're the ones who are most vulnerable. You're the one with the purse. More than likely, you're in the better position to go and rent because you didn't give the woman the money neither. So she can't go and rent. And it's unfair. And Christian men with decent minds should be able to understand that. It's unfair to tell the woman to leave and the children to leave when you're the only person with money. And that's why the law does those kind of things. Now, if it's the opposite way around, the man don't work and the woman got any money, ladies, we're not going to leave. Because as I said before, Trina, the pendulum on the clock swings as far on the tick as it does on the top. In other words, we're good for the goose. Has to be also good for the, and women want to do the worst that they can do and have the best of both worlds. But I'm not supporting one in that today, you know. I know that a lot of men are not getting a fair break either. And I'm not going to put water in my mouth to tell when God give the men a fair break. But men, if you do wrong, you have to suffer for it. But at the same time, ladies, you cannot expect to get the best of both worlds. Do whatever you feel like, and then walk away with the children in your house. It don't work so. Because law nowadays says whoever is in the better position has got to take care of the other one. So this talk that women used to have, Sammy, many years ago, I want half. Half is mine. You understand what I'm saying? Well, if the man don't really work and think, and you're the one with the money and the income, well, it's the man that can benefit from your purse. Because that was a thing in the days when only the men worked. But if you are in the better position, you have a higher paying job, you're an executive, and the man is driving a minibus. Huh? And you raking in thousands. And he does God give the owner $500 or $600 before he can get he pay. You understand what I'm saying? Then you're the one. Women, listen, you're the one who have to finance his life. And as bad as that sounds, there's the law. You can't turn him out. You ain't got nothing. So I want to make Adventist people sober in here today to understand what both the Bible and the law says. Because the Bible says treat one another good. And the law is simply trying to say that, the same thing too. Treat one another good. Don't go in court here. The court is not a nice place. The court is only a nice place to the men that wear the black suits and the black gowns. Everybody else, stand out. Right, Natasha? Stand out of the courts. So let me move on from there. Quick. A protection order may include provisions restraining the respondent from being on the premises that are the place of the work of the complainant. So you can't be in the house, no, you can't go to the person's workplace and harass them. All right? Or the educational institution. And that is why very often I've had to advise my own wife about this situation. You have a child in a class, and the mother says the father is not to collect this child. And my wife will come home and say to me, well, Tony, what do here? I said, well, ask the mother for some documentation that establishes that. You can't just tell the teacher the father must not have access to the child. You can't just say that. The way to do that is to go to the courts. Let the court say that and produce a document for the teacher in the school that indicates that when the father comes to collect the child, he must not do so. But it cannot be by your word. So we have parents telling teachers, the mother not supposed to get this child. You know, don't, if she come out here, don't get she this child. And then they come and quarrel and so on. It is the child's mother. And except you have some kind of standing order from the court, the teacher cannot prevent a parent from having access to the child. So you understand how it goes? Next, quickly. Good. I'm going to skip that. Go forward. Go forward again, please. One more time. Good. Now, Cecilia went through these things this morning. I'm not going to go back through them except to add at the bottom down here, neglect. Neglect in law means that you do not care for children. And I'm applying this now to children. A parent has a responsibility to provide for a child. There was a woman who felt hungry one night and left small children in the house. I think they all were less than 5 years. And went down by Shafek to get something to eat and come back. Right? People find the children out in the road crying for their mother and that type of thing. Now, when that happens, that's neglect. And that's something that you could be charged for. You cannot leave the house and leave 5-year-olds in the house. Now, you cannot even leave the house and leave a 12-year-old in charge of a 5-year-old because both of them are minors. Are you following what I'm saying? You have to leave an adult in charge of smaller children. So if you have all children under, I think it's in Barbados, 16 might work. Under 16, you can't leave them together saying they'll take care of one another. As hard as it might be, you either have to take them or find some adult to supervise them. Am I clear? All right, so that's what neglect is, not giving the child food. And by the way, there's some people who like to tell the children, you're going to sleep tonight hungry. You ain't getting nothing here to eat tonight. And they send the children to their beds. Not even a glass of water you're getting. That is neglect. It's abuse, and it's actionable under the law. You can be fined for that or put in prison for treating children like that. Blows that go beyond ordinary discipline to chastise the child in order to help them to mature and grow, that's fine. But when you're going to leave marks and remove all the child's skin and draw blood and that kind of thing and choke them and pelt shoes and belt knives and so on, that's too much, that's too far, and that's abuse. Let's go forward quickly. All right, so we're going to skip all this thing about the face of abuse. All of this is intended to say that everybody is affected by it. Women, go forward. Men, go forward. LGBT people, and by the way, the law gives the same rights. If you are 2 men living together or 2 women living together in that relationship, you can't beat up one another, and the law will protect them. Move forward, please. The elderly, old people in this country now are being abused a lot. You know, children are abusing their parents, and caregivers are abusing old people. Next one. And then there are children, and this is what I want to focus on for the next few minutes until I'm done. Children, go forward for me, please. The question, therefore, becomes, I'm a pastor, and the question becomes, when you as a pastor learn from a member that a crime has been committed or is about to be committed, what is my responsibility as a pastor when I know that one of y'all beating up on your wives in the house? What is my responsibility? Let me tell you what I have never done, even before I was a lawyer. I don't tell the woman, go back home and be subject to your husband. I don't tell the woman the only reason to leave is adultery or fornication. When I was the pastor in another place, not here, another place, and the woman told me and showed me the evidence, I got the deacon and the elder and a few more strong men in the church, and we back up a truck. And I make sure and ask her to tell me when he get me home in the evening. And when he was home, we back up the truck. Beep, beep, beep. It backing up while he home there. I said, brother so-and-so, I come to move sister so-and-so. Because she told me such and such. Is that true? No, I ain't going alone. I got the deacons and the elders and a few strong men. We come to move sister so-and-so because you're putting your hand on her. Let me tell you all something. If you commit a crime, and I'm the pastor, if you commit a crime, listen to what I'm saying, got a crime. This is being recorded. I want to be very specific. A crime. I will pray for you when you're in prison. I will do ministry, prison ministry, if you commit a crime. Go to jail. Do not collect $200. Go straight to jail. a crime. I have no responsibility as a pastor to protect you from the requirements of the law. Are you hearing me? If your marriage has problems, I'm going to pray and counsel with you. But if you commit a crime, what can you do with that? A crime, you know, I'm not talking about a misdeed or a mistake or weakness. I'm talking about a crime. I was the vice president, as you heard in the introduction. Drina read it very well. She even told you all my middle name. I can get her for that afterwards. But listen, I was the VP in CUC, USC in Trinidad. And I was responsible for the dormitory, and we had hundreds of students in the dormitories. And restless young people, you know, they got problems. So the dean of the dorm came down to my office one day, and I can see the cold sweat and the anxiety all over his face. It was clear to me that something was very wrong. Because I know the gentleman is normally calm, and he come in there huffing and puffing. I had to get my secretary to open one mouth. I had my little fridge there and ghee and quiet it down, take half an hour and think to settle it before the man could talk to me. And when he was ready to talk, I said to him, now before you open your mouth, I could see that something is very wrong. And I am expecting the worst. But let me tell you, this is before the man even on picky teeth, Roger. I said to him, listen, if you tell me that somebody has committed a crime, I'm going to pick up that phone there and I'm going to call the police. So you decide if you still want to tell me this. Man, he him a haunt. And I knew that some student had done something very illegal. He never told me that day, but he come back the next day. He said, man, Pastor Hall, I can't keep this. I got to tell you, but what you tell me yesterday is a problem. I said, all right, come, let me hear you. And he told me that a student had been involved in an activity that cost somebody their life. You follow what I'm saying? I signed for the student. I said, what the dean is telling me is true. He said, yes. And the only reason why I did not follow through there and then is that he said to me, Pastor, this happened in another country. And I am withdrawing from the university to go home to face it. You follow what I'm saying? And he did as he said. He served time for it. And he is now free and rehabilitated. I can accept that. But I'm telling you this story to make sure you understand. Are you serious? If you commit a crime, I, as your pastor, have no reason to cover that up. Because the law holds me culpable. You hear your word? That means they can blame me too for knowing and doing nothing about it. And it's going to give the church a bad name. You all know already how in the public domain the Catholic Church is constantly blamed for all those dirty things that the priest did to little boys all these years. And the great Father covered it up. Never did anything about it. Well, I'm going down so. My name not going to be in the paper for covering up none so. If you want to beat the woman and do them kind of wrong things, and it comes to my attention, my first response is not, now let us pray. I can say that when I visit you in St. Philip. And I'm saying this to say, please keep your hands off of each other, except the soft touches. Yet I want the soft touches. I wouldn't make a rule that will make myself suffer. I love the soft touches. You know what I'm saying? You like that too now? I tell you, he's something else, boy. I like the officer, I like Tyrone, you know. He does confess. Let me, you know, when John the Baptist was approached and they asked him, are you the Christ? I like the King James Version, but the King James Version said, and he confessed and denied not. Like when Hezekiah was going to die, Isaiah said, you shall die, you shall not live. That's why I like the King James Version. So he confessed and denied not. He likes the soft touches. So put your hands on me, please, Susanna. Then the touch is soft. But don't be slapping me up. Don't pinch me. Don't cuff me in my belly and so. And that is so for men and women. Y'all hear what I'm saying? Let brotherly love continue. Continue. And because the law has no other recourse, the law punishes people who do these things. The proper Bayesian expression, who does do these things. Next one. We good or mash up now? I talk too long? You're not supposed to agree with that. You're supposed to say, Pastor, no, it's fine. Go ahead, talk some more. All right, so let me go forward now. You'll catch up with me later, right? So here's the story. It's back up. So the leader has an obligation then to protect victims. It's gone again? All right. Whenever you're ready, you come back. The leader has a responsibility to protect victims of crime. That's the point that I'm making. And you must not only be concerned about the image of the church and what people will say. A person who is suffering as a victim of crime has to be protected. And they will not forgive you if you side with the perpetrator. Protect a perpetrator because they're the elder or because they're somebody of repute or they're a pastor or something like that. That should not be the case. A victim of a crime, you all heard me say crime, right? Crime must be given the benefit of the doubt and must be protected at all costs. Now, the last thing I want to say would have taken me a little bit of time, but maybe that's mercy that went off, so I can tell it to you in a shorter way. Now, get this. Barbados does not have what we call mandatory reporting. I think that's mandatory. I think that may be approximately what it is. Mandatory reporting says that when something happens that is criminal to a child, certain people have obligations to report that. Let me explain. The most recent law in the Caribbean, I think, on that point is from Anguilla. We don't have it, but I know child advocates in Barbados are advocating for it. And I believe sooner or later, that becomes best practice and law in Barbados. And what that means is this. The Anguilla law says that any person who has responsibility for a child, a caregiver, the list ranking from top to bottom will begin with parents. Parents have ultimate responsibility for children. Then it would include teachers, principals, doctors, nurses, medical professionals. And then it goes on to say priests or religious leaders. And it goes on to say anybody who has care and control and responsibility for child. So people at nursing homes and nurseries and people who are pathfinder directors. Did you hear me? And adventurer directors and Sabbath school superintendents. Anybody who has care and control and responsibility for a child is obligated under this statute. We don't have it here yet, but it's coming, I'm sure. In Anguilla, in Grenada, in Trinidad, and some other places. That if you reasonably, everybody say reasonably. Now that's a word that the law uses a lot. Reasonable. And a reasonable person is a person who, I suppose, the ordinary man, who is normally mindful and rational would think it would occur to any reasonable person that the circumstances surrounding this child looks like abuse. And if you reasonably suspect that that is what is going on, the law mandates you. It becomes mandatory. In other words, you have to tell. So if I am a pathfinder director, and a pathfinder tells me that the stepfather is coming in their bedroom at 1 o'clock in the morning to pray. Not P-R-A-Y, but P-R-E-Y. And I know that as a pathfinder director. And I see bruises on the child's body. And that child has medical things going on that is affecting their hygiene and affecting their private parts and so on, if I come to know that or reasonably suspect that that is the case, the law obligates me to tell it to the authorities. In Barbados, those authorities are the child care board. It can also be the police. Or let's say you're a teacher in a school and this comes to your knowledge, whether it be physical blows or sexual abuse or some other type of thing. The teacher then becomes obligated. The law says either to report or cause a report to be made, which means the teacher tells the principal. And the principal, together with the teacher, then files a report. Or the principal informs the ministry, and the ministry talks to the child care board. I don't know what your protocols say in the education system. But the law places the burden and responsibility on the person who knows. So let me say then that I am the pathfinder leader. I know because the child has confided in me. There is no obligation, and the elders are not going to like this. But I'm not talking as a pastor or a president here now. I'm talking as a lawyer. There's no obligation on the pathfinder leader to say anything to the elder. Because the law holds the person who has the knowledge responsible. So that person can go straight to the authorities without consulting the elder. And the elder will say, but why you didn't tell me anything? And the reason would be, the law places the burden on me. Especially because I know you. And if I tell you, you're going to hush it up. You follow what I'm saying? So a church board should not be meeting, discussing abuse, and then telling people, let me pray. If it is a crime, there's a heavy responsibility in law for you to report that. Randolph, am I right about that? Yes, nodding your head. Yes, if it is a crime. Now that's going to revolutionize the church. Because what we're really saying here, what I am really here saying is, live good, do what's right. Don't put yourself in trouble. I just try real hard to stay out of trouble. You know? I just drink my water and eat my vegetables and say my prayers and things. I stay hard to stay out of trouble, Sammy. Every now and then I pass by you, I get a watermelon or something. You know, I try hard. You know, eat the avocado that the neighbors give me. By the way, they were real nice. Thank you. That type of thing, you know? So we have to protect children because they're vulnerable. They cannot speak for themselves. Our text this morning says, open your mouth for those who cannot speak for themselves. That's children. That's women who are oppressed. That's people who have been beaten into subjection. That's people who have been abused, that they can't even speak now about what is going on. Open your mouth and speak for those who are abused. The final portion is this. In addition to the law, the church manual actually has a policy for the protection of children. I cannot tell you the pages because I'm old. People don't become presidents unless they're old. And I think I qualified for that. So I will give you the pages later, but the manual says, every person, and Cecilia, this is what Pastor Peters was talking about. Every person that the church elects to work with children must be screened, especially if they are new to the church. So when we baptize people on the 10th, and they got some big title, right? Or they have been somebody in some other congregation, and we tell ourselves, this is the important person, we can't have them in church doing nothing, and we give them an office immediately. And that office has to do with the people and them children. You don't know what you're doing. Cecilia told us this morning, when you send your children to other people's house, you don't know what's going on over there. And there's some, listen to me, my children learned things, came home singing songs, came home saying things that they didn't learn in our house. They learned them at Adventist school. And when we thought that we were protecting them by sending them to a school where Adventist children gather, it is right there that they learn the things that we want them to learn. Anybody understand what I'm saying? So do not assume that because all of we name Adventists that everybody do the same things, or that everybody proper. And when you bring people into the church, you have to take time to find out who those people are. You do not commit vulnerable children to their care. You do not make them the adventure leader, the pathfinder leader because they used to do girl guides. You do not know anything about their sexual orientation. Yes, I said it. And you do not know anything about their preferences. And you do not know whether or not they're pedophiles. And you do not know whether or not they're rapists. And you do not know whether or not they steal money. You do not know. So you do not expose vulnerable people to these individuals. The manual says that for 6 months, such people must never be placed in charge of children. Even in lesser roles. It doesn't matter. Don't put them to be in charge of children, period, for at least 6 months because you're getting time to know them. I watched a documentary on CNN with a man who had been a pedophile. Did I say it correct? Is it pedophile or pedophile? Man, he liked little girls and boys and would trouble them. That's what he meaning. And here's the story. The story apparently says this man had molested maybe near 100 children. And he had gone to prison for it. But when he was interviewed by this psychologist and this reporter, the man said that his favorite place to find children to abuse, guess where that place was? A church. And it didn't matter, any church. This man got baptized and accepted into fellowship in churches to give himself access to children. He said that he did this, Dolphus, and these are his words, because church people are easy to fool. When they baptize you, they call you brother. The same day. As soon as a little water go up on your head, oh, Brother Tyrone, how you doing today? You're my brother, my sister, so let me take you by the hand. And then you put Tyrone in charge of Pathfinder Club. You follow what I'm saying? And he out in some tent somewhere, I don't mean you. I mean another fella. Out in a tent somewhere with little children. And that's what he really wants. Right? And then Pathfinder directors, some of them I've seen them. They're not necessarily abusing children, but I've warned Pathfinder directors as a youth director not to do this. They may say, that tent full. Too many people in there. I got my tent over here. You, come. You're going to stay with me. You follow what I'm saying? One of y'all going to come up from there. And that's what they want. You understand? The policy of the church says that there should be an open door system. So I should not be in the vestry with anybody and the door closed. Literally, the door should be opened. People should be able to see in, and I'm supposed to be able to run out fast in case this woman attack me. Because it does happen. Anybody know what I'm talking about? They got some women that are not easy, you know. My wife left. I went to St. Lucia when we were young married. We even had the children. And I was pastoring in another place. Not this place. And a young one come down and say, Pastor, you want me to cook and bring some food for you? I said, no. I can cook. I cooks for myself. And I don't need any substitute, Susanna. It's okay. If I can't do it, I can go with my mother. Anybody hear me? Because I'm getting the setup, you know. I'm not getting the setup. I'm not interested in that. I like my own company, you know. I don't want the boy keep my company. Even if Susanna not there, I good. I good. Me and the cockroaches, good. I don't see many of them nowadays. But the roaches has got a thing on them. You know the word flit? Has got to flit them. Well, let me finish this. So what we are saying is the leaders must avoid situations in which they can find themselves compromised, especially when it deals with children. The rule also says that there must be a two-person policy. So no leader of children must deal with a child privately, one-on-one. There must be somebody else there. And we like to say, preferably somebody of the same gender as the child. So let's say I'm a male and I have reason to speak to a female pathfinder or adventurer or something. I should get one of the female directors to be with me. Anybody but somebody of the same gender, somebody who is there to say, no, this never happened. All right? Maybe three. The Bible says in the mouth of two or three witnesses. And it would be best, if it's not a particularly private matter, that you sit in the front of the church while other people in the church and let everybody see all they're talking. But privacy is not required for most of those situations, especially if people are not actually hearing what is being said. In addition to that, the policy also says that when a child complains, believe the child. This doesn't mean that the child is right, because the science and the statistics say that 98% of the time the child is speaking the truth. About 2% of the time only, the child concocts or makes up a story. So believe the child to the extent that you investigate the matter. Do not shrug it off. Now, this one is a little more personal. There was a time when a person called me, and I guess I get a lot of these calls because of the law thing. They called and they complained to me that their child said that a certain person at their church was speaking in a kind of sort of way to them that they didn't like. And that the child felt that the person wanted to be with them sexually. But the problem was that it was a respectable person that was doing this, generally speaking, and the child was of the same gender. So the parents called me and said, what to do here, Pastor Hall? I said, okay, let me see what I can do about this. I called the pastor. This is many years ago. And I said to the pastor, you need to look into this. The pastor said to me, I don't believe that. That doesn't sound like brother so-and-so. I don't think he'll do that. This man is leading the church. But what does an abuser look like? Does he have long ears? What is he, does he have a pitchfork? What does an abuser look like? Does he look like me? Y'all know anything? I put on my best suit this morning, come down here, to make an impression. Y'all know what other people doing? Now watch this. So you got to be careful. So hear this story. The pastor shrugged it off. He never dealt with it. About a year later in my house, I like to listen to the 7 o'clock news. You know, 7 o'clock news is coming on at 7 o'clock. So I like to listen to the 7 o'clock news, CC. And while I'm listening to news, I hear that 2 little boys were buggered. That means somebody troubled them with anal intercourse. Can I say that in church? Buggered is the word. I can think of another B word, but that's so nice to me, is it? Dolphus, you look like you think it's the same word. I can see it on your face. Now, these boys were buggered. And the 7 o'clock news said they are looking for a man that hold these little boys down through some bush going home from school, and they're trying to find this man. Well, they find the man less than a week later. And it was the same fella who was in the same church. And the children had told their parents, we don't like how he talking to us. And the pastor had said, he never do that. Y'all hear me? Well, that worked out good for the church because he ain't actually, you understand, there were other, as bad as that is, the church didn't get in trouble because, so do not ignore when a child says something is wrong here. A child says this, we have an obligation to investigate. And when I mention investigate, let me qualify that. Remember, the statute says that the obligation is reasonable suspicion. So you don't have to know facts in order to report. It is a suspicion, reasonable one. So you don't have to go and find out now if it really, really is true. The truth is you can make the report without that. But I think the church could probably ask a question. Brother so-and-so, what happened in the bathroom last Sabbath down there in the toilet? We have a report that something happened down there with some children. tell me what, and hear what he has to say. He's a brother, right? He's a brother. But at the end of that process, whatever it is you do, there's still the obligation to report. Because the child says something happened. So you can't take Brother X word saying, I don't know about that. Because when a man normally does these things or a woman does these things, they do not immediately say, yes, that is true. Because sex and sexual related matters is a very private thing. People that's going private places to do this thing. We all don't know that. And therefore, they do not readily admit to it. So you have to, for the time being, believe the child. Make the report. Let the proper authorities do it. Every person who is reported will not be arrested. The police will not come. The child care board may visit. They may ask a question. They may call you in and question you. They may take the child to a doctor for tests to look for DNA and whatever the case may be. And that will establish with a degree of certainty that something has happened and that this person might be involved. If they do not find any proper evidence for it, they can't make any arrest either. Because if they go to court, they must have evidence. So it is not just say, but you have to look into it. And you have to let the authorities look into it. I finish on this point. Jesus said, suffer the little children to come unto me and forbid them not. For of such is the kingdom of heaven. And he took a little boy and set him in the midst of them and said, if anyone offends any of these little ones, it were better that a millstone be hung about his neck and he be thrown into the depths of the sea. I've been to Israel 2017 and I've seen the millstones. Samson was grinding corn in Gaza with one of those millstones. A donkey would normally pull that stone. It's a huge boulder chiseled out by slaves because you can't pay anybody to do that kind of work. We found a well on Oldbury site some time ago. This thing must be near 100 feet. And I know, Brother Charles, that nobody paid to get that well dug because you can't pay anybody to dig that well. That had to have been slave labor. And so the stones in Israel were made by slaves, chiseled out. Big round things that no man nor no man can move or lift. And that's why you had beasts of burdens and Samson pulling that thing to grind corn. And Jesus says, when a man or a woman trouble a little child, tie one of them things wrong in neck. Drop in sea. No, I say so. Jesus says so. And wanna vex with me because I say I can call you police. Well, I think that's mercy on my part. Jesus holler, a big rock from Carl Williams, and then we move the earth to please should be tied around your neck. Drop you off, Brandon, there. You're not coming back up anytime soon. Jesus said this because he wanted us to understand the seriousness of abusing people and children in particular. Little children hardly ever recover. They go into adult life with those things dogging their steps and haunting them. Please, Pilgrim Road and everybody else who's listening online, do not harm children. Do not harm anybody, but especially children. I'm done. When the man from Jamaica says so, he's gone for another hour. But I done. Mark, you had up your finger. You want to ask a question? Okay, good. All right, so thank you for listening. And I had to get it out. The PowerPoint didn't work very well, but you can keep this and share it with the women's ministry so that you can reproduce it, share it with other people. It's information that is in the public domain. It's not mine. It's research. And you can use it for future studies and presentations and so on. And may God bless you. Happy Sabbath, everybody.